one. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast. You got Paul and you got Jake here to answer the questions that we get in the Facebook community, that we get from clients. And we even got a new one that we'll add in to add in a little bit of character. So, Jake, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. First day of the NCAA tournament today. We got St. Patrick's Day, so it's a good day.
Ooh, yeah, a lot going on today.
A lot going on.
This month's gone by quick. I'm like,
The whole year has
four,
gone by quick, I think.
4 days
But I mean,
from
that's just like every year you get older, I feel like you kind of notice that more.
yeah, 4 days from summer, or not summer, spring, but maybe it'll be summer, who knows. So, first question, we'll just dive right into it. And this was actually Jake's idea, so kudos to Jake. But Jake, what's the first question of the?
So the first question,
Q&A?
just kind of something random here. I thought it'd be fun for Paul and I to answer just like a random question to start these out. And so my question was for Paul, and then I'll answer afterwards, is what's one place that you would like to visit that you haven't been yet? Anywhere in the world.
Bam, great question. And this is one Haley and I are contemplating now because gonna have our honeymoon a year
Oh,
from
there you
now,
go.
probably a little bit more than a year because we get married on March 25th, 2023. So we got a little bit of time, but we'll end up going somewhere in the summer once we get a chance to breathe. And we're really thinking Italy, and not just Italy because she's been to Italy. I've been to Venice for like 2 days. But I am like hell bent on going to some place we can sit in a vineyard up in the hills, like a Florence type thing, but up in the hills. And I just want like 7 days of just eating Neapolitan pizza
Mhm.
and like red wine. And
Wait,
I'll
what is
probably,
Neapolitan pizza?
it's like where it's really thin
Oh,
and
okay.
kind of like fluffy crust. Like
Hmm.
the crust is really fluffy, then really thin. And so like the opposite of Chicago. But I just
Yeah.
love that. And I think that that would be really nice to
Yeah,
do.
Italy's beautiful. My brother spent a whole year there after he graduated high school before he went to college. So my family has been there together for like a week, and it was beautiful. I'd love to go back sometime.
Yeah.
So
How about you?
for me, there's one place I've been thinking about a lot that is really interesting. That's Japan. I am very interested in just things that are totally different that would throw you through a total loop. And I think Japan would just be in so many ways different and opposite from America. I'm very curious about that culture. I like the aspect of they're very clean and orderly, and everything seems very, from like what I've understood, that very futuristic and advanced. So Japan is someplace I think I'd really enjoy. Plus, I think one of my like ultimate food fantasies is getting sushi in Japan.
Yeah, definitely. It's like it's very tied to food. I think if I wasn't thinking it through the lens of a honeymoon, and this even could be a honeymoon, but South Africa or some sort of
Mm,
like safari thing would be cool.
for
And
sure.
I love animals, I love food, I love sun, so I gotta find a way to find the balance between that. Not a whole lot of animals and nature to go check out. I mean, there is nature in Italy, but you're not there for a safari
It's
by any
mostly the
means.
wine and pizza that you're more so there for.
Exactly. And I love history. So being able to go see a lot of those ruins and historical places would be really cool for me as well.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, let's dive into it. The questions that you guys asked. And this first one is a really simple one, but really, really tough for a lot of people. How do I force myself to wake up earlier to exercise?
Yeah. So this is a question that I brought up. It again was from a conversation that I had with a client, and she was making the point that essentially you see things online, you see things on Instagram or on YouTube, or you read books, whatever, that say all successful people wake up at XYZ, to work out at 5 a.m., to work out at 6 a.m., to read, to meditate. And I especially resonated with this because I know that there was definitely a point in my life when I was trying to make positive changes. And I kind of fell into this same trap where it was like, oh, you hear that Richard Brunson or Elon Musk or Steve Jobs woke up at 6 o'clock and did this whole morning routine. And I think that the important thing to note is that there's two things I would point out about this. It's A, I think that there is a lot of value you can glean from trying to take routines and sort of copy routines of successful people. But I don't think that there needs to be a one for one, like you do this at this time. I think that you have to notice patterns. Like most successful people work out daily. Most successful people have a mindfulness practice and have a period of focused creative time throughout the day. And I don't think it's as important when that happens, just as much as it happens at some point. And another point that I think is even more important is sleep, first and foremost, should be such a high priority for people. So oftentimes, at least people, that I know that are my age, that are in their 20s, 30s, like you're tending to go to bed a little bit later, like maybe 11 o'clock, give or take, is an average time. And to get 7, 8 hours of sleep, that's going to require you to wake up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, maybe even a little bit later, depending on what responsibilities you have. And so doing something like going to bed at midnight and forcing yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. might seem like a good idea, but it's going to have a lot of negative downstream effects as far as how tired you're going to be throughout the day. The more tired you are, we know that you're going to make worse decisions nutritionally. Your workouts are going to be less impactful. You're not going to be as sharp mentally. So work's going to be tougher. You might be more irritable. So sleep is a huge priority. So the waking up first thing in the day, I think, is just something like I call it motivation porn. When you look at YouTube or you read, whatever is the most popular book. And I just think that people should become less fixated on the methodology of doing things and just finding what routines work for you.
Yeah. I think the best question to ask is actually, I get that it's a question, but I would ask a better question. And the better question would be, how do I make it as easy for myself as possible to wake up earlier to exercise? Because if you're going through the mindset of how do I force myself to do something that's totally against the grain and against my biology and against what I actually want to do, that would be like me being like, how do I force myself to be a ballerina?
Mm-hmm.
Don't force it. Go to bed earlier, work on your sleep cycles, work on, setting your day up so that you have the time or the equipment and whatever you need as close to you as possible. Set up your day, set up your habits, set up your routine, set up everything so that it is easy as possible. It's like the cheesy thing that maybe you had your mom do for you before school, where you set out your shoes and you set out your clothes so you already know what you're wearing the next day.
Mm-hmm.
That should be done if that's something that you struggle with. If you struggle with waking up and you feel absolutely exhausted, go to bed sooner. And to your point, if that is not possible, maybe you work at 6 a.m., have a call at 6:30, then work out after. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really just like getting it done is the most important thing. How it gets done doesn't matter. And falling for this trap that everyone has this morning routine and everyone works out at 5 a.m. is just simply not true.
Yeah. And I think something really important to note here is you have to focus on making good decisions as frictionless as possible. So if you hate the feeling of waking up in the morning and you hate going to the gym or going out and exercising first thing in the day, if at all possible, schedule it for later in the day, schedule it for after work, maybe over your lunch break. There is lots of options. I think if you really are objective about how you spend your time, where you don't have to work out first thing in the day if that's not what you enjoy. Another thing that I find interesting is I have read a little bit about circadian alignment, which is essentially when you call someone either an early person, a night owl, there is some biology to that where we're more predisposed to have our highest productivity either in the morning or in the evening. So as much as you can, as much as it fits around your lifestyle, try to think about when is my energy the highest? How can I make these good decisions that I want to make as frictionless as possible? And so a good example from my life, I find working out really easy. I've done it for so long. Like I've worked out, I've lifted weights 3 or 4 times a week for over 10 years. So it's not really a hard decision for me anymore, but something like writing, which I want to do for my stand-up, I want to do for my newsletter. Writing is something that requires a little more concentration and focus. So I feel most energized first thing in the day. So when I wake up, have some coffee, I like to get my writing done, and then I have the hardest task out of the way. So try to think about how to set things up in when you have the most willpower, when you're feeling the most inspired, that's when you do your hardest task. And then you do other things when like for me, for working out is something that doesn't take a lot of motivation. So I might stack that sometime in the afternoon when I'm not necessarily feeling inspired, but it's still easy for me to go and get that done.
Love it. The most important task put at when your willpower and your energy is going to be the highest, and that's going to be different for everyone.
There's a productivity tip that often gets talked about. I think they call it eat the frog, where you do the hardest thing very first in the day. So whatever the thing is that you're most dreading, there's a lot to be gleaned from just getting that done first thing in the day, doing that hard task, and then the rest of your day is going to be so much easier. Versus, say, when it comes to productivity, again, if you're just talking about work, don't save that hard project for 3 o'clock when you get off work at 5, because you're going to be dreading it all day. Get it done first thing of the day, and then the rest of your day is going to go a lot smoother.
Yeah. One last little quick tip on waking up earlier: charge your phone not on your nightstand, so that you actually have to
100%.
get up and turn off the alarm as opposed to just hitting snooze.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next question. Drinking always triggers my anxiety, and I wasn't able to sleep that well, so I just felt a bit off. I just felt a bit off.
Yeah. So this is one I pointed out to talk about as well, because I would say I have a few drinks once or twice a week. And every month or so, maybe I'll have a little bit more than that, like actually drink heavily. And I can definitely attest to the fact that when I drink heavily, I always feel a stronger sense of anxiety. And I think that where that comes from is as your body gets more sensitive, I think especially the better you are about your nutritional habits, your sleep habits, just living a healthy lifestyle. When you have that influx of alcohol, which is technically a chemical, a poison in your body, it's going to have this adverse reaction. And I think that's where the anxiety comes from. So I guess I don't know that it's necessarily a solution here, but just trying to figure out how can I still go out and do things that are social that I enjoy doing without having to rely on alcohol. So you and I have talked about before, just the drive to, when you're out with friends, just have a drink, and you're drinking more just because you feel this social pressure. So can you mix in a water between drinks? Can you just get like a soda water and lime so that you feel like you have a drink? I guess if you notice that time after time, like every weekend you go out and drink with your friends and you drink too much and you feel anxious, if you want to stop that pattern, then you have to think about things. Either are you going to switch your friend group? Are you going to switch your routines, do something different on Friday night, substitute something positive like going to a workout class? Or are you going to figure out how to just change the thing that's causing you anxiety, which is drinking too much, by introducing some other type of substitute? I think that we talked about this in some fashion on Tuesday, but I think that always makes more sense. It's always easier to think about what you can add versus thinking about what you can take away when you're trying to make positive changes.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few parts within this that I want to address, because there's triggers, there's anxiety, or drinking always triggers my anxiety is one, sleeping, and then just kind of touching on way to think about this, I would say. So drinking always triggers my anxiety. So first thing, anxiety is going to be anticipation of a consequence that hasn't came yet, but it's basically you're anticipating that something bad is going to happen. So look into what is the thing that you are anticipating coming up. Is it that you are going to gain weight? Is it that you're not going to be ready for work? Is it that you're not going to be able to sleep well? Because you've seen this pattern happen over and over again. So your brain is filling in what is going to come, that perceived consequence that is on its way. It's important to recognize alcohol is a depressant. So when you are throwing your emotions, or when you're throwing your physiology or your chemistry from anxiety to depression and up and down, that's going to cause issues as well. I was reading a random Facebook post, and this lady articulated perfectly. She was speaking to mothers specifically, but was saying, moms, you have all of these things that you are stressed out about. You've got so much time that you're spending with your kids and really no time for yourself. How is having a bottle of wine a night going to help that, when we know that alcohol is a depressant? If you're already struggling with mental health or want to improve your mental health, don't make it worse. And I think this is the biggest thing that I would say the society needs to just come to terms with, is no one has ever said, oh, I'm so glad I drank more, I'm so much healthier, or oh, I'm really glad that I'm hungover. And for some reason, this country and other countries refuse to give up this story and this belief that you have to drink. You don't have to drink. Can you have 1, 2, 3 drinks in a sitting a couple times a week? Yeah. But anyone who wants to do something that is in the top 10%, not even 1%, 1% being like an Elon Musk or a professional athlete, or something that is very high in terms of achievement. If you want to be in the top 5% of results, you can't do what the other 95% of people are doing. And this belief that you can just drink every single day of the week, that completely goes against every single thing that science has said. Science has never said, yeah, drinking is going to greatly improve your metabolism. Drinking is going to greatly improve your sleep. We have all the data in the world that says drinking is going to trigger anxiety. Drinking is drinking is a depressant. Drinking disrupts your sleep. Drinking is going to impact your performance. So there's a understanding that needs to come. You can't win this battle by thinking, how do I drink but still get my, like, how do I get my cake and still eat it too? And so to the second point of that, like, I wasn't able to sleep well. Well, we know that when you drink, you're going to disrupt your REM cycle. You're going to disrupt your sleep cycles. You're not going to actually get to deep stages of stage 3, stage 4 REM sleep. And so your brain's not clearing what it needs to. Your body's not recovering the way it needs to. And so the next day you're going to feel off because you are now sleep deprived and you're going to be low energy. And because you're low energy, your biology is going to take over and you're going to go look for foods that are very high in sugar, quick, easily digestible energy, because that's what your body needs because it's already low on energy.
Yeah.
And
What's shocking is I've heard the comparison many times that alcohol essentially disrupts your sleep as much as caffeine. So essentially, like Paul's saying, the important part about sleep is getting into deep REM cycles where it's repairing, it's restorative for your body, for your brain. And when you drink alcohol, any more than, say, 2 or 3 drinks, you're going to start to disrupt that cycle. And I think that that's one of the things that's empowered me the most to drink less over the last few years, because the more you value sleep and the more you understand all the physiological processes that are happening during sleep, the more you value that and the more you don't want to disrupt that. So be careful you have to understand too, like if you're talking about caffeine, if you're talking about having a couple of cups of coffee at like 6 p.m., you're going to feel how hard it is to fall asleep. With alcohol, it is a depressant, like you said, so it's going to make it easier to fall asleep, but you're going to have a disrupted pattern of sleep. And sometimes it's not even necessarily noticeable right away. But again, you're going to have those downstream effects of anxiety, of making poorer choices the next day, of just feeling tired the rest of the next day. And I think that one thing I also wanted to point out was we kind of hit on 2 different sides of the coin in terms of anxiety. So you talked about the anxiety of looking forward to drinking. I'm scared I'm going to drink too much. I'm scared I'm going to make bad food decisions. I'm anxious because there's a social situation going on. Whereas the anxiety I was talking about was more so the physiological disruption that happens from not sleeping, from putting a toxin in your body, that you sort of feel the next day. So there's these 2 different types of anxiety, whether it be the anxiety that comes from when you're thinking about the effects of drinking, or afterwards when you're just trying to rid your body of that and get over the adverse effects that happen from drinking, hangover, poor sleep. So I think that a good thing to think about here is something I like to talk about a lot of times with nutrition. You have to think about what you're taking in and how it's going to affect you downstream. So maybe a piece of pizza or a cheeseburger is going to taste better and it's going to have more immediate pleasure than a meal filled with lean proteins, vegetables, those healthy foods that are going to fuel us. But we're going to tend towards the latter most times because it's going to make us feel better in the long term. So you have to think about alcohol in that way as well. How are you going to feel in the long term and making that a priority, so that you're looking out for your future self and you're thinking about, I'm not going to have 4 or 5 drinks because I don't want to feel shitty tomorrow. I don't want to have a poor night's sleep tonight.
Yeah. The last thing I'll just say on this is, if something always triggers something, if eating gluten always triggers a excruciating stomach ache, or if eating peanut butter always triggers an asthma attack, stop doing it. And I get that stopping alcohol completely is not for everyone. So reduce when you do it. Be really intentional and mindful when you do it so that it's not going to trigger your anxiety. And this is what I mean when it's like, as a country or society, we believe that we have to do something, even though it is negative in terms of the repercussions for us. You don't have to do anything. You get to choose what you want to do. And ultimately, drinking always triggers my anxiety. That is a choice that you are making. And the reason why you're not able to sleep well is because alcohol disrupts your sleep. And if you want to
Mhm.
sleep well, drink less.
Yeah.
Cool. 2 more questions. Why did I plateau and why did I gain weight back? These were 2 that were kind of acclimated or accumulations of questions around the metabolic adaptation. And it was a training that I did Wednesday. So we're going to come out with that podcast probably next week. And then the training is in our Facebook group, our Mindful Muscle Facebook group. But first, why did I plateau? And Jake, I'll let you jump in a second. The first thing that I would say with why did I plateau, it's really important to understand the energy balance, the calories in, calories out equation, which is ultimately what governs us gaining weight and what governs us losing weight. There's a lot more context in here, and that's within the training. But first, just understanding that concept is going to be what you need in order to understand plateauing. So then you need to understand that the metabolism is how the body intakes food, breaks it down, uses it for energy. And so the metabolism is how every single cell, every single organ, everything in your body works together. And it either is really efficient and the cells are getting the movement, the nourishment, the sunlight, and the sleep that they need, or they're not, and they're less efficient. So when you look at plateauing, your metabolism is trying to find balance and it's trying to find homeostasis to keep you alive because it's a biological system that is hundreds, if not thousands or millions or whatever years old that hasn't had an update to match what we want visually and aesthetically from a Instagram and getting likes and abs and pictures. And our body doesn't care about that. Our body wants to allow us to reproduce and stay alive. So 500 years ago, there's times where food was plentiful, so the body would build as much it could from a sense of fat stores, and there was time when there was famine, and so the metabolism needed to be able to adapt so that you didn't die, and so it down regulates energy expenditure. There's 4 parts of that equation: total daily energy expenditure. It's going to be your BMR. It's going to be your NEAT, so your non-exercise, so something like walking. It's going to be your thermic effect of food, so that is the energy it takes to break down certain macros, and then there's your exercise. So those 4 things make up this number. So to the question, why did I plateau? Let's say you are eating 2,500 calories and it's maintaining your weight at 180 pounds. At 180 pounds, you start to lose weight when you cut your calories down to 2,000. So you're eating at 2,000. Maintenance and maintaining your weight was 2,500. That's a 500 calorie difference. You start to lose weight from 180, 179, 178. Eventually, your metabolism adapts to where maintenance becomes 2,000. And this can happen really quick for someone, depending if they're a hyper responder, and that's how their metabolism is set up and genetically coded, or it can take a little bit more time and you're able to lose weight for a longer period of time on that 2,000 calories. Essentially, the metabolism is going to adapt to be 2,000 calories as maintenance. You've lost weight, so you no longer need as much energy to move your body. Think of your body as a machine needing gasoline. It's going to be more fuel efficient. Think of like a car, like a Toyota 4Runner versus a Toyota Prius. The Prius is more fuel efficient. It's smaller. It's lighter. Then you have what is happening from a metabolism standpoint in terms of as you lose weight, you require less energy, but your body is also getting more efficient at solving the equation of energy output. So let's say you do a ton of cardio to do that, your body is getting more efficient at running. It's becoming more efficient at the energy that it expends because it doesn't want to keep expending more energy than it needs to. You're putting it in a calorie deficit. So you plateau basically because your metabolism adapts down to the calories that you're eating. And then you're left to two things to do. You can take a diet break. And this is stuff that gets talked about in the training a little bit more. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Or people lower their calories more. And it ends up being this game of metabolism adapts, lower calories, plateau, metabolism adapts, lower calories. That leads to a lot more long-term downstream effects where the metabolism is disrupted. You run into biofeedback issues with craving, sleep disruption, poor performance, loss of libido, loss of menstrual cycle, skin starts breaking out. Basically, the body doesn't have what it needs to function. And so you get these signs, you get this feedback from your body. And so I'll put a pin in that. Jake, let you jump in with any additional thoughts, and then I'll touch on why you gain weight back because it's very similar to that equation.
Yeah. So what I would add to this is it reminds me of something else that you and I talked about recently. I'm pretty sure it was this week when I was saying that I have a lot of friends that are interested in fitness, are not as in depth on it as you or I, but it seems like with the general population, there's a positive and a negative thing happening, which is calories are becoming more of the focus. Whereas in the 2000s, even in the 2010s, a lot of times when people talked about nutrition or about health, it was like you have to be on a meal plan, you have to eat clean. And now the conversation has kind of switched, largely because evidence-based fitness is becoming more popular, where people will talk about controlling their calorie intake and being in a calorie deficit to lose fat, which is positive. But I think the negative side of that is not understanding how complex the calories in, calories out equation is. Like you said, there's so many things that go on in the body where it's adapting down and trying to reach homeostasis that, yes, you can control your calorie intake, but the more you try to restrict, the more your body is going to burn less calories. So yes, it is a matter of calories in versus calories out if you're going to gain or lose weight. But the thing that we can't control so much, unless you're really being intentional and doing the things that we're talking about as far as controlling the metabolism, is how much energy your body is burning. So the biggest thing I think people run into, again, just speaking in terms of general population, is trying to diet too much. If you're trying to diet half the year, 3/4 of the year, even years at a time, you're going to really hit these hard floors that it's hard to get past. So I always love giving out rules of thumb or heuristics. And for me, a big one here is I would only focus on spending a fourth at least to, well, not even at least, but just around a fourth to a third of the year in a calorie deficit, trying to lose fat, and the rest of the time trying to be in maintenance or even a surplus to try to build muscle and add to your metabolism. That's going to keep it where your body is not hitting these floors as far as metabolism and as far as burning a low amount of calories. It's so common, and it's sad to see, because I know that there's so many people out there that, like I said, spend 9-10 months out of the year dieting, and they're probably they're eating low calories, and they are eating these low calories chronically, but not seeing results because they're not focusing on this calories outside of the equation, which is, like you're talking about, the BMR, the basal metabolic rate, the activity that you're the non-exercise activity, and the thermic effect of food. Those things are all going to adjust down as your body tries its hardest to reach that homeostatic point.
Yeah, I'm really glad you called that out, because as you decrease calories, your body's decreasing the available energy. You're going to talk slower, fidget less. Subconsciously, you're going to move less and just walk less, because the body doesn't want to expend that energy to move
Yeah.
your hand, because it's the energy that it has is at a premium. So
there's things that sometimes I'll read or hear in a podcast that I'll just always remember because it serves to be such a good reminder. And so you and I had talked about Lane Norton before. His book is one of the ones that is kind of the framework of how we look at nutrition. And I remember, I think it was on a podcast that he was on. So Lane Norton is a competitive natural bodybuilder, and he was talking about being in prep one time, which is essentially trying to lose as much body fat as possible, get extremely lean, down to about 6 or 7% body fat. And he was talking about how when he got really close to that 6 or 7%, super lean, his body is very, very much adjusted to burning low calories. And to your point, where you are burning less energy subconsciously throughout the day, he talked about an example where every day, he's going to go out to his mailbox and get his mail, which might burn 10, 20 calories at most, walking to the end of the driveway and back. And he said, as he got very deep into a prep, he would start to rationalize in his head, like, I'll just wait till tomorrow to get the mail. Stuff that's even that small that we wouldn't even take into account, but our body is so smart and does so many things on a subconscious level that you have to pay attention. And that's an extreme example, obviously, but it just goes to show that our body is smart in the way that it conserves calories, because that's why we've survived for hundreds of thousands of years, because the body gets good at that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call out. I've heard of a similar story where he mentions looking at the channel changer on the other side of the couch and just being like, I don't want to do that. That's not happening. And it's just the body and biology overriding willpower. So part 2 of this, why the gaining weight back happens. And you'll see anywhere from 85% to 95% of dieters gain the weight back. America, especially America, is really good at losing weight. We've got a $71 billion diet industry that is great at saying, hey, do this new magic pill, you'll lose weight. but no one talks about what to do after you lose the weight. And it's because there's no money in that, or at least there hasn't been in the past, because people don't want to do the work after they get the result. It's almost like you win $1 million and that's what people want, but then no one wants to do the work of putting it into savings and then investing it and making sure that you're doing smart things with it to make sure that you keep the $1 million. Everyone just wants to get the $1 million. They want to lose the 30 pounds. But once you get it, then you got to make sure that you keep it. So gaining weight back, what's happening is someone, like maybe we'll just use a female for this example, 2,000 calories is maintenance. They diet down to 1,500 calories. Eventually the body adapts. They plateau at 1,500, so they cut calories lower, 1,200 calories. Then the body eventually adapts to 1,200 calories. They kind of get stuck at that 1,200, 1,300 calorie level. And I'll hear this all the time for clients. They believe they need to lose, in order to lose fat or weight, they need to be at 1,200 calories. And it's this really bad myth that has just been permeated through society and through history that that's the number to be at. Well, when the metabolism adapts to 1,200, 1,300 calories, and you've got a lot of negative biofeedback, the things that I mentioned, sleep, hunger, mood, cravings, menstrual cycle, libido, all these things are off, not working as they should. But what happens when you reintroduce eating how you were before the diet? Well, now you're back at 2,000 calories. 2,000 calories and 1,200 calories is an 800 calorie surplus, right? And maybe your body adapts up to 13, 14, 1,500 calories, but you're still in the surplus. So two things happen. You either go back to eating how you were before the diet, boom, really quickly gain the weight back because you're basically eating almost 1,000 calories a day over what you were eating in your diet. Or someone is good for 6 days, but then that 7th day, they just can't hold it any longer, and then they end up having 4,000 calories. And so it's this yin yang kind of game that they're playing every single week, and every single week they're adding on a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and they can't understand why. And I told you it's frustrating because I see clients deal with it, especially as they come into the program. I see them learn why that's happening, and we can see it real time early on in the program, and then they start to understand what's going on, and then they start to see results. But ultimately what's happening is your metabolism adapts to a low number, you go back to eating a high number, you gain the weight back because you go back to eating how you were when your metabolism was at 2,000 calories and maybe you were 180 pounds. You diet down, get down to 150, but then you go back to how you're eating at 180. You're a smaller human and your metabolism's adapted down. You're going to gain the weight back because you're eating for a human that no longer exists, but then that person comes back because of this metabolic adaptation. And so there's a lot of processes to mitigate these effects. You'll never be able to completely get rid of metabolic adaptation. It's not to think of anything as bad. It's good that your metabolism adapts. If it didn't, you would die. But there's a lot of things that we can do in the form of refeeds, diet breaks, as you're losing weight during that process. And then the process after losing weight is a reverse diet. We've got several case studies in the training that is going to be linked below in this podcast. It's also in the Facebook community that you can watch. But a reverse diet is just a really common process where you take anywhere from 6, 8, 10, depending on how someone responds, and you reverse diet them so that you can get their maintenance calories back up to, it's different from everyone, but it might be 75, 80, 85% of what that initial maintenance was before the diet. But now you can go and live your life with this new sustained weight and this new body, but with a calorie intake level that's so much easier to hit because it's really hard to live off 1,200 calories. You have so much more freedom if you're trying to live off of 1,900, 2,000 calories.
Yeah. And I think something that's important to call out here for the audience is when you say a word like metabolism, a lot of times people's minds jump to metabolic damage, metabolic slowdown. A lot of people will be like, oh, so does that mean because I've dieted for the past year, is my metabolism harmed? Is it hurt, damaged, whatever you want to call it? And no, that's not the case. It's just smart and it adjusts, but it can also adjust upwards is the good news. So your metabolism is never going to be in an unfixable place. Even if you're at low calories and have been at low calories for a while, it just takes the process of learning and understanding the body and figuring out how to intelligently add food and add hopefully some form of resistance training to add lean body mass so that your body can continually eat more calories, but you're never going to run into a situation where your metabolism is permanently damaged. I know that that might be like a headline that somebody might read, or maybe a pitch for a fat burner or something like that. So it's important to call that out. Two things that I would add, I wanted to really call out again the restrict binge cycle, because so often when you talk about, yes, people can lose weight, but the hardest part is keeping it off. The restrict binge cycle is the most common thing you'll see people falling into, because anyone can eat clean for a week, for a month, even for multiple months. But I think what gets lost there is you're feeling in a place of restriction. And so oftentimes once you get off of a diet plan or a 30-day challenge or what have you, you're going to see that huge rebound in weight because you're so starved for the foods that you love that you haven't given yourself in a long time. So to me, this speaks to the importance of just having moderation. If you like to drink alcohol, figure out how to have a couple of drinks a week, not going a month without drinking and then getting drunk 3 days in a row. Or if you love dessert, if you love cake or ice cream, figure out how to have that once a week in a moderate serving so that you don't just go a month eating none of it because of a challenge or because of a diet or what have you, and then you just eat it nonstop and you can't stop eating it. So having moderation is the best way to get rid of that binge and restrict cycle that can add weight on and keeps unwanted weight on. And then the other thing is, as far as macro tracking and calorie tracking, if you are someone who is approaching your fitness that way, don't think of it so much as something that you do daily. Think of it more so as something that you do weekly. So again, if you use the example of someone who is perfect Monday through Friday, but has 4,000 calorie, 5,000 calorie days, Saturday and Sunday, well, think about what the 7-day average is going to be. It's going to creep way up versus, again, if you're including things that you enjoy on a moderate, in a moderate amounts throughout the week and not feeling like you have to binge, every day can be closer to the average calories that you're trying to fall into. So it's going to make it easier to hit, I guess, just to make it more concrete with numbers. Like say you're trying to have a 2,000 calorie average to lose weight. Well, that means that you have to average that throughout the course of the entire week. So if you have 2,900 calories on Saturday, you have one big meal, you have to think about the fact that if you want to keep that average, you got to pull those calories from another day. And it's not something to get too caught up in, but just as a reminder that no matter how perfect you are 4, 5, 6 days of the week, there's no such thing as a cheat day that's just not going to count, where you can just have a free for all. Your nutrition is something that is, everything's going to have an impact, whatever you eat. So there can't be these periods of complete diversion from the plan. But the flip side, the positive side of that is you can always include things that you like in moderation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's weekends, weekdays, and how we see the day or how we see the week. The body just sees the day. It sees
Mm-hmm.
sunrise, it sees sunset, and it's the system and processes that it has done a billion times in your body for billions of people for a really long time on this earth. And there's one last thing I do want to touch on in terms of having a broken metabolism or damaging your metabolism or having any of those kind of buzzwords. You're not going to break anything and you're not damaged. So do not think that. However, at sustained time or at sustained periods of really putting the body under any kind of stress and duress does lead to dysfunction. And so you can create situations, I'll use diabetes, for example. If for 50 years you have a really high sugar diet, eventually your body is going to become insulin resistant. You'll be diabetic, pre-diabetic, diabetic. So when you're looking at how metabolic impacts the hormones, it's really important to understand too that you're going to have indirect hormone reduction where your thyroid, your testosterone, your leptin is going to decrease, your cortisol, your ghrelin are going to increase as you're losing weight, as you're in a deficit. And so you can lead to a situation to where your thyroid becomes dysfunctional, to where you develop some sort of situation that is just like PCOS, for example, hypothyroidism, for example. Maybe you eat a food that you continue to eat over and over and over, and you create some sort of intolerance to that, and you run into gut issues with a dairy or a gluten. And so it is important to understand that you can't just hammer the body for years and years and years and expect the body not to have to adapt in potentially a negative way. And so there's a difference between you being damaged and you being broken, but you can definitely lead to dysfunction within the body if you ask it to do something it's not designed to do for a really long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Jake, any last thoughts?
No, I think we covered a lot here, and I look forward to continuing to do these. I think these are always very valuable.
Yeah, super fun. So, a few housekeeping things. If you got any value out of this, would encourage you to just tag Jake and I and share it on your story. That way we can share it with additional people so that they can get the information that you're finding valuable, or share this with a friend. We obviously don't run any ads. We don't have any kind of paid things or promotions. So it is very much a value exchange. We're here to help you out, give you free content, and we just ask for some sort of exchange in return. Couple other things. We've got the Mindful Muscle Facebook group that you can join. The link's going to be in the description. That's where you can go and get access to these live trainings, these live Q&As, ask questions that can then be answered on this podcast. We've got a full Mindful Muscle mini course within there that you can get access to as well. And when you join, you get a free recipe book, which is pretty sweet. Then we've got the Fuller NutriFuel. I'm going to get that at some point. Fuller NutriFuel, if you're in the Seattle area, Seattle-based meal prep company, delivers freshly made meals to your door every Sunday and Wednesday. You can use the code Paul15 for 15% off your first order, Paul10 for subsequent orders after that. But I am just amazed how many people will get their DoorDash multiple times a week. The average DoorDash order is $36. And then they'll say, oh, I don't know if I can do a meal prep company. Well, it's going to end up being $12, $13, $14 per meal of a meal prep company, or $39 an order at DoorDash. So you can do the math there and see that you're actually going to save hundreds of dollars, if not monthly, potentially even weekly. So Fuller NutriFuel, it's going to be linked below in the description. Check that out. Get food delivered to your door. Save yourself time, save yourself money, and that's going to be something that you can use. You got the Mindful Muscle Facebook group. Be sure and join that. And then last but not least, every single day we help clients and take them through the E4Fit program. It is a method that brings the 4 elements of fitness together: training, nutrition, recovery, and mindfulness in a way that is specific and unique to you. And we coach you through how to get the results that you want with your body, with your performance, and just ultimately living a happier and healthier life. So if that's something that you want, that link's also going to be in the description. If you're listening to this on the Facebook group, the link's going to be in the description and in the more info section of the Facebook group. So schedule a call, have a conversation around what you're looking to do, what you're looking to create, and the changes that you want to make in your life. And we're more than happy to help walk you through what that would look like for you. But Jake, thanks for helping me out on this podcast. We'll catch you guys next Tuesday. We got a book review. And other than that, I think it's time to sign off. Any last thoughts?
Yep. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Catch you guys next time on the Mindful Muscle Podcast.